This conference will now be recorded.
Today, my topic is about hydrocephalus. So what is hydrocephalus? Okay, it is an abnormal increase in the amount of CSF within the cranial cavity. Basically, it is seen in case of young children who has expansion of the cerebral ventricles or enlargement of the skull and atrophy of the brain. These are the accompanying features of the hydrocephalus. So introduction. Most cases of hydrocephalus are diagnosed during the neonatal period only. So in during the time of the third trimester, during the scannings, we find out whether the baby is having hydrocephalus. So overall prevalence rate is about 3 to 4 per thousand. Results from the disturbance of the dynamics of the CSF, which may be caused by the cerebral diseases. Okay. Anatomy. The ventricles of the brain. There are four ventricles, that is lateral ventricle, third ventricle, and fourth ventricle are mostly involved. So this is the anatomy of the brain. It's involving the ventricles of the brain. That is communication of all the ventricles, including the lateral ventricles, the third ventricles, and the fourth ventricle. So the third ventricles are connected to the lateral ventricles by the foramen of Monro, and the fourth ventricle is connected to the third ventricle by the aqueduct of the Sylvius. So there is any decreased absorption of the CSF or increased production of the CSF, which may cause dilatation of the ventricles, causing the hydrocephalus. So, physiology of the CSF production. So how is CSF produced? Mainly by the two mechanisms, that is secretion by the choroid plexus and lymphatics like drainages by the extracellular fluid in the brain. So CSF circulates through the ventricular system and is absorbed within the subarachnoid spaces by the unknown mechanism. So how it is absorbed is still unknown till now. The volume of the CSF in an average adult is 80 to 160 ml. That of a child is about 5 to 10 ml. So the ventricular system holds up to approximately 20 to 50 ml of the CSF. CSF is produced in the choroid plexus. The rate of formation is 15 to 35 ml per hour. So absorption is about same rate only. So the flow of the CSF. How the CSF flows through the ventricular system in the brain. That is, first it is produced in the choroid plexus and it passes into the lateral ventricles to the foramen of Monro. From there to the foramen of Monro, it passes into the third ventricle, and through the cerebral aqueduct of Sylvius, it passes into the fourth ventricle. From there, from the foramen of Magendie and Lusca, it enters into the perimedullary and perispinal subarachnoid spaces. Then it enters from the upper to the basal system and into the superior and lateral surface of the cerebral hemispheres. This is the flow of the CSF. Okay. So this is the picture representation of the flow of the CSF from the third to the fourth ventricles to the systems to the basal and to the cerebral hemispheres. Okay. So the circulation of the CSF, the pressure gradient is highest in the lateral ventricle and diminishes successively along the subarachnoid spaces. So the pressure system in the lateral ventricle causes the decrease in the CSF. The arterial pulsation in the choroid plexus drives the fluid from the ventricular system. The periventricular tissue offers minimal resistance to the flow of the CSF. So, CSF circulation. The volume and the pressure are maintained by the systemic circulation, that is within the brain and the spinal cord. That is, and the CSF pressure is in equilibrium with capillary pressure, that is the arterial tone. So what affects the circulation of the CSF? So hypoventilation, that is increase in the blood PCO2 and decreased pH, body pH, and decreased arterial resistance. There is any increased cerebral blood flow and increased CSF pressure causes affects the CSF circulation. So hyperventilation of the opposite side has the opposite effect on the CSF circulation. Hydrocephalus, how it results from, that is impaired absorption of the, now up till now we have discussed about the normal physiology of the CSF, and from now we will know about the hydrocephalus, that is how it is formed, that is impaired absorption of the CSF within the subarachnoid space communicating through the hydrocephalus, and obstruction to the flow of the CSF through the ventricular system, that is called as non-communicating type of hydrocephalus. So impaired absorption is seen in mostly in the subarachnoid spaces and the choroid plexus, where the absorption of CSF is decreased, causing increased production of CSF only and accumulation of the CSF within the ventricular cavities. And obstruction of the CSF, it is seen in when the aqueduct of Cilius is closed or any other tumor causing closure of the obstruction of the flow of the CSF, which causes increased production of the CSF and accumulation of the CSF within that particular ventricle. So if there won't be any communication, so it is called as non-communicating type of hydrocephalus. These both type of hydrocephalus, that is non-communicating and communicating, they lead to the increased accumulation of the CSF in the ventricles. So they become dilated and compress the brain. This happens before the closure of the cranial sutures and the skull enlarges, so causing impaired closure of the skull, impaired fusion. So in children less than 10 to 12 years, they have previously closed sutures, they may open up again, because in children the suture line is still not intact. So they up till the age of 14 they won't fuse. So at the age of 10 to 12 years, if they have any obstructive or communicating type of hydrocephalus, the so closed suture, that is metopic suture lines, may open up. So in the picture representation, you may see that the suture lines are opened up in case of hydrocephalus. Okay. So types of hydrocephalus, they may be congenital and acquired. So acquired, we know about the communicating and non-communicating type of hydrocephalus. In congenital type, it may be seen in mostly in infants. So congenital hydrocephalus, most common this is the most common type seen in children. So usually they present in infancy. So hydrocephalus presents after the age of 6 months and is less likely to be congenital, and neoplasm must be excluded. So 95% of the times the hydrocephalus, it may be have underlying causes such as neoplasm or any obstruction type. So acquired hydrocephalus, first coming to the non-communicating type of hydrocephalus, it is categorized into intraventricular obstruction, that is if there are any tumors in the posterior fossa tumor and in the brainstem glioma and the tumor of the pineal body and the choroid plexus, they may cause obstruction of the tumor. And papilloma and papilledema, ependymoma and colloid cyst may cause the non-communicating type of hydrocephalus. If there is any infection, that is cerebral abscess or cerebellar abscess or any ventriculitis, infection of the ventricles, may cause non-communicating and increasing depth of aqueduct. Okay, communicating type of hydrocephalus, that is extraventricular obstruction by the infection, that is most commonly infection is TB, tuberculosis. In case of India, tuberculosis is the second most common leading infection. So it may cause the extraventricular obstruction and subarachnoid hemorrhage and head injury. And coming to normal pressure hydrocephalus, it is characterized by the dilatation of the ventricular system by the intermittent rise in CSF pressure. It is most commonly seen in older adults and is accompanied by the following symptoms, that is gait disturbance, he may having the disturbance in the walking problem, and dementia, and if there is any urinary incontinence. So most common syndrome affected in this, most common syndrome seen is Dandy-Walker syndrome malformations, that is congenital blockage of the foramen of Luschka and Magendie, which causes accumulation of the CSF in the third and fourth ventricles most commonly, and it's associated with the agencies of the cerebellar venous. In this, Dandy-Walker malformation is most commonly seen in males. That is, proportion is about 3:1. So, presenting features of the Dandy-Walker malformation is infant will be having bulging occiput, that is, and he'll be having nystagmus in the eyes and ataxia, and he'll be having most commonly 5th to 11th cranial nerve palsy. There won't be any occlusion of the ventricles. Symptoms in the infants. Clinical features of the hydrocephalus. These are influenced mainly by the patient's age. That is, in young age, up to the age of 12 years, it is most commonly seen. And the cause of hydrocephalus, the location of the obstruction and its duration and its rapidity in onset of the hydrocephalus. Symptoms in infants. The most common symptoms in infants include poor feeding. The baby will be irritable and he will be having reduced activity and he will be having projectile vomits. Common symptoms in children and adults. As the brain, the cerebral hemispheres and the cerebrum, cerebellar and the brainstem are affected, they will be having numerous symptoms. That is, the slowing of the mental capacity and the cognitive deterioration. The patient will be having delayed milestones also. So headaches which are present initially in the morning because continuous accumulation of the CSF, by the end of the day, the headache will be subsided due to flow of the CSF and no accumulation. The patient will be having severe neck pain and vomitings which are more significant in the morning. Those are projectile type of vomitings and blurred vision, and it is a consequence of papilledema and later or due to optic atrophy. Initially, the patient will develop papilledema, then followed by after a span of 15 days, then he will develop optic atrophy due to continuous irritation in the optic nerve. And double vision related to the unilateral or bilateral 6-nerve palsy. He will be having difficulty in walking and the patient will be drowsy. As mentioned, he will be having delayed milestones. Examination in infants. In infants, it may reveal the following findings. That is, patient will be having head enlargement. In Dandy-Walker malformation, we have observed that the patient will be having bulging occiput, but in this case, in infants, the whole head will be enlarged with the disjunction of the sutures due to excess increase in the intracranial pressure, causing diastasis of the sutures up to the age of 12 years. The patient will be having dilated scalp veins and tense fontanella due to improper development of the fontanelle. So in infants, these are the most common findings. So examination in infants. Setting sun sign. That is, the eyes will be present downwards due to increased intracranial pressure. The eyes will be deviation towards the downwards and retracted upper eyelids and visible white sclera above the iris. Due to downward shifting of the pupil of the eyes, there will be visible sclera. So this is a pictorial representation. He is having increased head enlargement with tense fontanelle, and the sun setting phase where the pupil are completely downward deviated with retracted upper iris completely, and the sclera is clearly visible, upper sclera. So on examination, the patient will be having increased limb tone. The spasticity preferentially affects the lower limbs. So upper limbs are affected, lower limbs are more affected than the upper limbs due to lower motor neuron palsy. Examination in adults. So in children and adults, they may demonstrate the following findings and physical examination. That is papilledema, failure of the upward gaze, and unsteady gait, large head, and unilateral or bilateral 6-nerve palsy, secondary to the increased intracranial pressure. So most common findings on there will be optic atrophy causing papilledema, and the failure of upward gaze due to continuous pressure of the intracranial pressure, increased intracranial pressure causing sunsetting sign in the eyes, and the patient will be having unsteady gait and the large head. So on examination, Children may also exhibit the McEwen sign, in which it is called as the cracked pot sign, sound noted on the percussion on the head when you do percussion. So investigations. So on ultrasound scanning, more basic investigations are done. That is the ultrasound, plain skull X-ray, CT scan, and MRI. Ultrasound findings to know whether there is a increased CSF pressure. Plain skull X-ray to know whether the sutures are still intact or diastasis. And CT scan showing the intrapathology, most commonly intracranial pathology, and MRI to know whether the soft tissue scanning, that is whether the intracranial pathology. With ultrasound scanning, it is usually done to diagnose the congenital hydrocephalus. So here you know whether you can visibly see the ventricles and the fluid within the ventricles. Plain X-ray, the suppression of the sutures and erosion of the sutures, and increased convolution markings are seen within the plain X-ray. These are the mainly findings seen in the X-ray. It is also called as ciliar batten appearance. So this is the ciliar batten appearance seen in the skull X-ray. CT finding, the communicating hydrocephalus, mostly seen, that is dilatation of the ventricles. It is the coronal section. Okay. Ballooning of the frontal horns, which is also called as Mickey Mouse appearance. And the hydrocephalus on the MRI is dilatation of the ventricles, that is on and the intracranial tumors. So treatment. So therapeutic management. The goals include the relief hydrocephalus. The goals include the relieving of the hydrocephaly, treat complications, manage psychomotor problems, and it is usually surgically managed. There is no medical management in case of hydrocephalus. It is completely surgically managed. So the better the early the diagnosed, baby will be having the good prognosis. If he is diagnosed at a later stage, the prognosis will be somewhat bad. So most commonly for hydrocephalus, we do the ventricular peritoneal shunts. The shunt system include the three compartments, that is ventricular catheter, one-way wall, distal catheter, and the ventricular catheter, that is the straight piece of tube close to the proximal end with multiple holes up to the 2 cm center of the CSF. So the shunt system, shunting is mainly called due to works on the basic mechanism of shifting of the excessive fluid from the ventricles to the other side. Generally, it is like a pipes irrigation system. So the ventricular catheter, these are the parts of the ventricular catheter. That is the straight piece of tube closed in the proximal end with multiple holes and up to 2 cm. So the material used in making the shunts are elastic material made from the silicon. This is the straight ventricular catheter, and this is the right angle ventricular catheter. Shunt malfunction. What happens if the shunt fails to function properly? So the complication of the ventricular peritoneal shunt include blockage and infection, and the malfunction, it causes retarded in the growth, related to growth, that is retardation of the growth, and it is to be replaced with longer catheter. How does the shunt formation occurs? Mainly due to blockade or infection, that is headache or fever, and it causes drowsiness and convulsions and increased head circumferences and bulging fontanelle. So the treatment of the hydrocephalus, they include ventricular atrial shunt. This must be accurately located, requires frequent revision, and distal end positioning to be maintained. Infections may be more serious. So ventricular valves, and it is connected to the right atrium, that is ventricular atrial shunt. And this is called picture A represents the ventricular atrial shunt, and picture B representing ventricular peritoneal shunt. So the excess CSF fluid is diverted from the, in case of A, it is diverted to the right atrium, and case of B, it is directly converted into the peritoneum. It is placed, the longer catheters are taken, and the direct conversion are placed into the abdominal cavity, into the peritoneal cavity. So, of the other type is ventricular pleural shunt. In this, the both ventricular peritoneal shunt and ventricular atrial shunt do not function to absorb the CSF shunt, but have to be placed in the pleural space. So in case of the failure of the VPS and VAS, then we go for the ventricular pleural shunt. So what is the post-op care you have to take? So observe for signs of increased ICP. That is to assess the pupil size, and blood pressure may be variable due to hypoxia, and abdominal distension due to CSF peritonitis or post-op ileus due to catheter placement. And the choroid plexus may share the ion pump and enzyme systems with renal tubular epithelium, and the drugs used are acetazolamide and furosemide. Thank you.